And here we go.
There's the deluge. Here's ignition.
Roger, roll, Atlantic. Doubling up.
Did it just do a Kerbal?
Back to the moon and beyond.
Put that in the big bag, Gino.
Back at home, we all have a lot of work to do, but from here, it sure looks like a perfect world.
Propulsion continues to be normal.
We did have an observation.
Equalizer.
343 unfolds to go.
It's orange.
Water towers can fly!
Bingo! Right in the center.
Where's Jacqueline? There it is!
That was surreal.
That's not what we want to see.
No! Oh my god.
Yikes, you bet. We don't need any more of these.
Good evening. You are taking a live look right now at Space Launch Complex 40 at the Cape Canaveral Space Force Station in Florida, where this is not your ordinary Starlink because it is a rare non-Starlink Falcon 9 launch, getting ready to launch the Echostar XXV satellite for Echostar and Dish Network. I am Sawyer Rosenstein. I will be your host for this evening's broadcast, but as always, I am not alone. I am joined today on the air out in the field by Max Evans. How's it going, Max?
Good evening, everybody. Yes, indeed. I wouldn't say rare, but a not so common commercial mission here from SpaceX and Falcon 9. The reason why I guess I say it doesn't seem so common is because we're so used to seeing Starlink missions shooting off left, right, and center, especially at this time of night and into the morning. But heading off to a geostationary transfer orbit tonight, and it is going to be beautiful because of it.
I was trying to think earlier. I mean, I don't think we've had a commercial launch from 40 yet since the end of last year, or a non-Starlink, or NASA mission, if I'm remembering rightly. But I'd have to look back through next space flight. And then also joining us in the field tonight with views like the one you see on your screen here is Jerry Pike. Thank you for rolling out tonight, Jerry.
Hey, it's always nice to come out here for another launch. And yeah, it's not your everyday Starlink. It's because it's not a Starlink at all.
There we go. And tonight, pushing buttons and pulling the levers is Carson Phillips. So a reminder, if you have questions, you can tag us at NASA Spaceflight or at NSF. We will do our best to answer as many of your questions as we can throughout the evening. And apparently, it's been since January 28th, which was the last GPS-3 mission. For some reason, I thought it was the other one at the end of December. But anyway, regardless, it's been a while since we've had a non-Starlink or non-NASA launch here from Slick 40, and tonight's payload is Echostar XXV. So this is a payload that is made by Lantera Space, which is a part of Intuitive Machines, which is formerly Maxar, if you want to get all complicated with the naming and everything. But mainly it is the one that you see here on your screen. And this one is launching into a geostationary transfer orbit tonight to deliver this massive piece of technology into geostationary and to be able to beam down television for people across North America. In particular, this one will be used by Dish Network to provide TV to people that don't actually use streaming but still have the actual physical antenna dishes out on their locations. So that is set to launch tonight. It's on one of the usual payload bay buses that they have that we're used to seeing from this company. So it is it's a common base, but it's very unique for this specific mission. And again, going to that 110-degree point for that TV picture delivery. That means if we're going to geostationary transfer orbit, where are you going to want to look for this launch? You are going to want to look due east, which will be tonight's launch trajectory. And of course, launching tonight is the booster that you see on the screen. On your right there, the left is the trajectory that it should take. And if you know that big box over there, you know that usually means there's a recovery of some kind. So, Max, what is the booster and what is the recovery vessels for this evening?
Yeah, indeed. Because it's heading straight east. Whether you are north or south of the pad, you should have an equally great view of the launch itself, given the weather in your area is playing nice at that time. But the booster on the docket over at Slick 40 tonight is booster B1085, and this is its 14th scheduled flight to this point. Its list of missions so far includes Crew 9, RRT1, Firefly Blue Ghost Mission 1, From 2, SXM-10, MTG-21, and 7 previous Starlink missions. So it's not a young booster anymore, but it's certainly not elder either. I mean, this being in the teens, it's getting close to, or is in the I guess the middle age range so far as far as the Falcon 9 first stage fleet goes. Also aiding in booster recovery downrange is the drone ship, a Shortfall of Gravitas, stationed about 600, or I think it's around 600 kilometers or so downrange due east also. And aiding in fairing oh my goodness. And aiding in fairing recovery also is the vessel Doug, hopefully scooping those fairing halves out of the water about 100 kilometers or so farther downrange. So I would say business as usual for SpaceX because it is, but it's not a Starlink, but it is just a quote unquote standard. I say that in quotations. Commercial mission, just showing off what else Falcon 9 is capable of doing, and heading off due east into a geostationary transfer orbit is just one of those other things that Falcon 9 is quite capable of.
It's amazing to see. And it's funny, you're talking about, this one's a relatively younger booster, and yet you compare it to the record-setting booster that we had just a couple of weeks ago, and this one somehow looks more sooty than the one that's flown over 30 times to me. It's kind of funny at this point.
Yeah, I don't know. Like soot builds up on the boosters differently compared to others. I mean that also how the soot builds up on the booster, it all depends on the ambient temperature around the booster, where it's flying, how much frost is on the booster. Is it doing a boost back burn? Is it only doing a one engine landing burn or a 3-engine landing burn? Whole bunch of other factors in there. But like as a key example, at one point in time recently, where we had booster B1077 and booster 1067, which is the current fleet leader. And booster 1077 looks so much darker than 1067. And I think 67 has around 8 or no, it has like 8 or like 7 or 8 more flights in its history. So definitely an interesting change or turn of events there.
Yep, and I'm going to interrupt you. Speaking of turn of events, you see on the top left of your screen that orange bar. We do indeed have a hold at this point. So according to SpaceX's website, there maybe a pause. We're double checking here. Maybe a glitch with our little stuff we have back here. Trying to figure this out. But anyway, the soot pattern is very different. Yeah, I think that may have just been a glitch because it appears to still be counting here. So
I would sure hope so.
Yeah.
Because as far as the eye can see here, at least weather-wise, there's not much to be getting in the way of the launch night in terms of just weather here local to the launch site. Not quite sure how it is downrange, but at least according to the forecast from the 45th Weather Squadron, the weather or the probability of a weather-related violation tonight is only 10%. So overall, weather looks really, really good for tonight. And there's minimal cloud cover, tons of stars out, a bit of a breeze coming off of the ocean here tonight, which is about normal though, but certainly not a showstopper by any means for Falcon 9. And also in terms of booster recovery weather, that is also listed as low. So unsure as to the means for this, I guess now hour delay for the launch compared to what it was before. Not quite sure. Hopefully, we will have some insight into that, although I wouldn't guarantee it because normally we don't have access to that unless SpaceX decides to publish something. But also, they have about an hour and a half launch window to be working with tonight. 2.5 hours. The window opens at 11:14 p.m. local time, despite the first T0 being 11:19, and the window closes at 1:43 a.m. local time here on the east coast of Florida. So, not the end of the world by any means, but it is certainly eyebrow raising to say the least.
Yeah. And from the looks of it, I mean, the window opened around 11:14, 11:19, which was now, but it appears to be an hour push from this. So they still have an hour and a half in that window, but it appears as if the new T0 for this is 12:19 a.m. Eastern Time. So that is what we're looking at right now. Again, just double confirming everything here, but that's what it appears to be, 1 hour push. Let me take a moment, thanks to people here while we do all of our double checks and do our due diligence here. Chromatic, thank you for gifting a Red Team membership. Carl, thank you for becoming a Padrat member. And Fluffy coming in saying, greetings from the Fluffy Kitchen just north of the Wyoming coast where I'm cooking eggs and bacon in the oven because I'm not a heathen unlike some. Totally not a call out at all to anyone. No, of course not.
That's a bold statement right there.
I mean, I guess it's compared to people that do it either... at least it's not the microwave. Let's go with that.
That's also true.
Yeah. So interestingly, again, so for the payload tonight, we were discussing that this is for Dish Network. There is some fun kind of facts with this one. You know I like fun facts. So this will be the first newly built satellite for Dish Network launched since 2010, which was Echostar 15. But I know some of you are going to go, wait, no, that's not true. There was Echostar 23 that launched just a couple of years ago in 2023 that was for Dish. Yes, but that was an old satellite that they had. It was literally a satellite bus that they had in storage from 2013. And they finally took it out and finally used it for Echostar 23. So if we're talking new buses for it, yeah, this is the first new one in about 15 years. So yeah, it's a little fun fact with that. If I'm remembering it rightly, I'm scared because Alex is typing in the back channel, which is probably going to tell me I'm wrong. But it's just interesting to see how the times have changed. And also Echostar 23, fun fact, was the first commercial mission, if I recall correctly, from Launch Complex 39A, the first ever commercial mission. Yes, Alex confirming that, RIP B1030, which was the V1.2 back in the day when it was expendable.
That was was it expended or was it the first reflight? Forgive me for asking.
Oh, that was expendable for sure.
That was okay.
Oh yeah, the first commercial mission from there. That's before they were regularly reusing stuff.
Yeah. Okay, sorry, I had my timelines all mixed up there.
It's all good. It's weird to think that just in 2023 it was like, oh yeah, they're gonna be thrown, or was it 23? Yeah, they were just throwing some of them out, and now it's like, oh, reuse.
Yeah, we hardly ever see any boosters thrown away anymore, and really the only times we do is if a payload is just big enough on Falcon 9 to where they can't really spare the propellant margins on board to perform entry and landing burns. But that's a rarity nowadays, and also whenever they launch Falcon Heavy nowadays as well, which is also very, very, very rare, as we haven't seen one fly in over a year now, which is kind of sad. But usually on a standard mission where they want to recover both side boosters, they still end up expending the center core right now because they haven't had much luck in making sure that those are recovered, and they may as well spend the propellant on board, making sure the payload gets to where it needs to go. So hoping that they get back to center core recovery in the near future, but Falcon Heavy is a rare beast to see fly. And again, we haven't seen one fly since October of 2024, the day after Starship Flight 5, which is kind of sad.
That's wild to me. And yeah, again, this one, as we mentioned, going to geostationary transfer orbit, which we should point out that Falcon 9 can do 3 different types of geo orbits. There is the standard geostationary transfer orbit, which we're used to seeing, again, due east, drops it off into the transfer orbit, done. There's direct to geo, where it launches it straight into the actual geosynchronous orbit rather than leaving it at a slightly lower point. The second stage usually ends up in a graveyard orbit up there, and that's also usually the missions that we see with that gray mission extension stripe on it. And then there's this mission, which is the Subsynchronous, the Subsync Geostationary Transfer Orbit. So basically, it's getting it almost to GTO, but then the satellite has to do a little bit extra to finish the job before then making its way over to geostationary orbit. Because that's not confusing, the Falcon 9 to do 3 different types of geostationary orbits. We can't just say geostationary. But in the meantime, though, the rocket is still staying stationary, at least for another hour and 45 minutes, and while we wait for this clock to continue to count down, we are going to take a brief commentary pause. We'll be back as we get closer to fueling of Falcon 9, so stick around, enjoy the tunes, enjoy the views, and we will come back after a little DJ Carson tonight. We'll see you then. Welcome back, everybody. Surprise to everyone who had us open in another tab. Welcome back. We are returning once again after that delay for the launch of this Falcon 9 rocket that you see on your screen at Space Launch Complex 40 at the Cape Canaveral Space Force Station in Florida. This is for the Echostar 25 mission, which is now about 40 minutes to go until launch. During the break, we did get the update from SpaceX that they were targeting the 12:19 a.m. Eastern Time T0 for this launch, and that weather is greater than 95% favorable for the night. I'm once again joined on commentary for those who missed earlier by Max Evans out in the field and Jerry Pike also out in the field. Which, how's the weather looking out there? I know they said greater than 95% favorable. What's the viewing conditions looking like out there, Max?
So I am actually currently located south of the launch pad at the Cherry Down Park in Cape Canaveral, just to get a different perspective of tonight's launch. With it launching to a geostationary transfer orbit, it's heading due east, and we should have a great view of the exhaust plume expansion tonight. So weather-wise, it's a bit hazy out here tonight, but it's mostly just due to ocean spray, a bit of a breeze coming off the water. But if we look overhead, there's some thin clouds above us, but the temperatures are rather pleasant. Nothing to really obscure viewing tonight other than that ocean mist. But otherwise, weather is looking a-okay for tonight's launch, which is actually backed up by the forecast from the 45th Weather Squadron based at the Patrick Space Force Base, which is currently showing only a 10% chance of a weather-related violation, which that's not as good as it can get, but that's not bad whatsoever. And the primary concerns, I believe, was the cumulus cloud roll, which, as far as I can see with the Mark 1 eyeballs out over the Atlantic Ocean, I cannot see any of the sort. So in terms of recovery weather as well, downrange, the risk criteria there is rated as low. So really, weather is not... weather, oh my goodness gracious, English please. Weather is not poised to be a factor in tonight's liftoff to whether it is a showstopper or not.
Exactly, and this should put on a view for most of the people along the eastern portion and a little bit directly across the state for western parts of Florida. This one going due east tonight. So recently we've had a string of northeasterly Starlink launches, which have put on quite a show in that direction. Of course, we had the crazy jellyfish the other week. Tonight, though, is just a straight due east launch again. It's been a little while since we've had one of those. So we'll have to keep an eye out on the trajectory, what we're able to see, and if we're able to see that second stage startup and the entry burn. But this mission, it's worth pointing out, as you can see, is not your ordinary Starlink because this is not a Starlink launch tonight for Echostar 25. And if all goes well, this should be launching in about 37 minutes from now. At this point, the teams at SpaceX, it seems like they have given the go for propellant load. If so, then that prop load will begin about a minute and 30 seconds from now at the T-minus 35-minute mark. That is when they start loading up the RP-1, the rocket propellant 1, which is a type of kerosene, as well as the liquid oxygen, or LOX, as you see on the timeline there, into Stage 1. Meanwhile, Stage 2 just begins with that RP-1 because it's a little bit closer to ambient temperature, so they load that one up first. Then they do the chill down of the lines to get ready for the liquid oxygen, and that is the famous T-minus 20-minute, 20-second best vent. And then at about T-minus 16 minutes is when they start loading up liquid oxygen onto Stage 2. So all of that should be happening soon. If they are go, then in less than a minute, they'll begin that prop load, and then we will keep our eyes on this booster to see if we see any of that frost forming. So those of you in chat, keep an eye out as well on the booster once we get below that 35-minute mark, usually around 32 to 31 minutes before launch is when we would see that frost forming on Falcon 9. Which, on this Falcon 9, Max, what Falcon 9 booster are we looking at?
So currently on the docket over at Pad 40 is B1085, and this is its 14th scheduled flight to this point. So certainly a middle-aged booster nowadays. It isn't young, but it also is far from the current fleet leader, which is 1067, holding at 33 reflights, which is absolutely insane. But in terms of a mission history for this booster in particular, it includes the likes of Crew 9, RRT-1, Firefly Blue Ghost Mission 1, from 2 SXM-10, MTG-21, and 7 previous Starlink missions. So certainly not a youngster by any means, but it is not an amateur either. So it is heading downrange towards a geostationary transfer orbit, which, so in other words, it is heading due east, hopefully to be meeting the drone ship, a Shortfall of Gravitas station about 600 kilometers or so downrange, to be landing on about 8.5 minutes into the flight. So in terms of fairing recovery, we are looking at Doug about 100 kilometers farther out to scoop those fairing halves out of the water, assuming those come down A-OK as well. So, but it's also, as we've said a few times before as well tonight, with the rocket heading due east tonight, directly east, whether you are north or south of the launch pad, you should have a great view either way, assuming the weather is playing ball or behaving itself around you. So it should be everybody around here should have a great perspective of the launch tonight. And certainly there is a growing crowd of people here over at Sherry Down Park and the beaches of Cape Canaveral right now. So everyone is getting ready.
We are all getting ready for this launch indeed. And I love looking at the list there. You could see just a mix of both Starlink missions, ISS missions, crew missions, the first ever human polar launch. All of that on this one booster, which is really cool.
Yep.
And now another GEO launch, which it launched one of the Sirius XM satellites, and now launching Echostar XXV, which, what is this payload? Some of you may be wondering. Well, this is going to geostationary transfer orbit, eventually geostationary orbit in the 110-degree inclination, and that will be used to beam television signals to dish network users across North America, typically the US, Puerto Rico. And this is that satellite you can see there as it was after it rolled to Cape Canaveral for processing, and that was how it was transported there. So this is for Echostar, again, is using this for Dish Network. Boy, customers, my brain just stopped working there. This is manufactured by Lantera Space, which is a subsidiary of Intuitive Machines, which was formerly known as Maxar. So just you gotta love how simple they make that. But anyway, this is based off of the Maxar 1300 platform, which is very common. There's a lot of satellites that use it. I believe NASA used it as well, even on their Psyche mission out to an asteroid. So there's a lot of, and yeah, the Sirius XM launch that it launched as well previously, using that same kind of bus. This is the SpaceX mission patch that they have linked on their website for this particular mission. And this will be beaming the television down, although they do point out that this one will not be doing just a giant blanket over the entire U.S. It will be able to kind of steer the dishes on it to where the demand is needed the most. And I think I'm seeing something there, Max. You?
Indeed, we are seeing the first signs of frost on the bottom of Falcon 9's first stage liquid oxygen tank. So SpaceX and Falcon 9 have committed to prop load at this point, and they cannot delay into the launch window any farther if they had a need to. So they obviously feel confident enough in the vehicle and the weather for everything to go rather smooth, hopefully in just over a half hour from now.
Here we go. And it's nice to see that frost forming again, as you pointed out, because of the temperatures that they use and the method that they use. So SpaceX uses something called load and go. So basically, then as soon as at the last possible moment, essentially, is when they begin their propellant loads. And they keep them colder than they normally would. So they are super chilled propellants, especially that liquid oxygen. The denser liquid oxygen and propellants and things means they can stuff more of it into the rocket. But given that we are in the humid Florida air and you're talking negative 300 and even colder degrees, both Fahrenheit and Celsius, yeah, that kind of will boil away really quickly. So you keep it super cold, you load it up fast, and then within a minute and a half of all the propellants finishing loading, you launch. But if you can't get it off, then you can't launch that night and you've got to detank and try again another day. So hopefully we don't have that tonight, and everything proceeds as planned here. And a reminder, if you have questions, you can tag us at NASA Spaceflight or at NSF, and we will do our best to answer as many of your questions as we can. And I did see someone asking, we are not sponsored by Echostar. We are not sponsored by Dish TV. My parents have Dish, if that counts for anything, but they do the streaming, not an actual physical antenna outside their house, which is what this is used for. This is used for the people that still use physical TV antennas to get their television. I did see someone asking about Pad 40 before. So Scotty was asking, did any shuttles launch from Pad 40? They did not. The space shuttle was only launched from Launch Complex 39A and Launch Complex 39B, and those are over on the NASA side. So it's kind of hard to explain, but there's a bit of a divide with all of the launch pads. There is the NASA side and there is the Space Force side. So you have 39A and 39B are both NASA launch pads. Slick 40, which stands for Space Launch Complex. So Slick 40, 41, 37, all the way down that way. Those are on the property of the formerly U.S. Air Force, now U.S. Space Force. So sometimes you will see NASA payload launch on rockets from Space Force property, like we saw with Crew 12 recently, but it never launched any of the NASA vehicles from there. So that's why SLS, Shuttle, Saturn V, all those launching from historic Launch Complex 39A and B.
Yeah, Pad 40 still has a cool history, though, supporting the Titan family of rockets with the Titan 3 and Titan 4, which are some of the most metal rockets ever out there and amongst some of the coolest. But yeah, if there was one rocket I wish I could have seen fly during its time, I think the Saturn V and Space Shuttle, I never saw Shuttle, unfortunately. But with the exception of those two, I think it's for sure Titan 4. I think that was an absolute beast of a rocket between with the solids lighting on the ground only, and then the core stage lighting in flight. It's a very dramatic rocket to see fly, but that was the only line of rockets or family of rockets that Pad 40 supported. So still a rather cool history, and obviously a not low launch cadence either. This is a pretty extensive list.
Yeah, I see Cassini-Huygens in there. Talking about historic Saturn launch. All of this from Space Launch Complex 40. And then we get into when it transferred over and SpaceX took the lease of the pad. There we go. There was Flight 1 over there, COTS 1. Gosh, look at how far it was. 2010. The Space Shuttle was still flying at that point.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
Man, the old Block 1s. I mean, we were talking about this earlier, that in terms of these Echostar launches on SpaceX, they did launch Echostar 23 on a Falcon 9, and that one launched from Launch Complex 39A and was the first ever commercial mission to launch from 39A. And we were talking, that was Falcon 9 version 1.2, back when it was expendable, and they just basically threw it in the ocean as they were working on eventually getting to a higher cadence of reusability. That was only, a year-ish, a little over a year after the first booster landing on land, and less than a year after the first time they landed a booster on a barge, which was CRS-8 in 2016.
Which
Sorry,
is
I'm rambling.
10 years ago now. It's been 10 whole years.
Oh, that hurts.
I know, it does. It's wickedly cool because it shows just how well Falcon 9 has stuck around, but also a decade is a very long time, and all of us now suddenly feel very old.
Yeah, this year is 15 years since the end of the Space Shuttle program. I'm trying to come to terms with that.
Stop it.
I was
Stop
there.
it,
It hurts. And hey, what do you know? This is the Echostar 23 mission. And this was also a satellite that would be used for Dish Network. And fun fact about that, as I was mentioning before we went to commentary pause, is that was a satellite bus that was in storage since 2013. And they're like, you know what? Let's launch it. So they did. So that was one that was built in 2013 and launched in 2023. Prior to that, the only other Dish satellite that had been launched from Echostar was Echostar 15 in 2010, in fact, going back to that year. But obviously not on SpaceX at that point. Oh my God, look at that. It looks so weird seeing it without the black accents on it.
Like it's weird seeing a non-Block 5 variant of Falcon 9 because it's all white, but it's also it's incredibly weird to see LC-39A without the black cladding or without any black paint on it, but also with the RSS, or the rotating service structure that they used to service the space shuttle with when it was at the pad. That was still there. They flew with that still in place, and that wasn't removed until 2018 or so, 2017, 2018. So that was around for a while, which is kind of spooky.
I remember how sad I was when they kept tearing it down. It was out there for CRS-11 and CRS-12 in the pad, and back when they used to let you set up remotes inside the pad. God, I miss those days. And it was just like, no, it's coming down. This feels so weird. Why are they taking away the shuttle hardware? And now it looks weird seeing it with the hardware back there.
I know. It's like I remember seeing photos from the first ever launch from there, or at least the photos from the press for the pre-launch, because I think they had a pre-launch press conference there with Gwyn before the launch. But oh my word, it was so weird to see Pad A still hauntingly similar to how it looked during the space shuttle program, but now supporting a rocket that has no sharing philosophy with the space shuttle in terms of its design or anything. So, but oh, how times change. And
Yeah,
that pad now as well.
Yeah, it turns out you don't need a rotating service structure to encapsulate a vehicle to load in payloads into its payload bay when you just stack it. And you just put it in a payload fairing and launch it, aka what we see here.
Yeah, right.
Which had an interesting question that came in also as a super chat that Sentnum was asking, can you explain the reason for booster numbers? So we're talking about, obviously there's block 1.2 and blocks and whatever, but why the different booster numbers, Max?
It's just an easier way for the team at SpaceX to manage and control and keep track of the boosters that they have produced, which is important, especially if boosters are going to be kept around for reuse and making sure that they are or that they know where they are for storage or moving around for refurb work and everything. So it's just important to keep for them to keep track of where they are and what they're doing. So that's really the big point there, but it's also worth noting now that in terms of Falcon 9, they are now beyond 100 boosters built now, first stage boosters. We have reached B 100 or B 1100, I should say, out at Vandenberg, and then the Cape has B 1101, which we have seen fly one time so far. So it's especially the more boosters they build, the numbers just help them keep track of everything. But all that being said, though, the oldest booster currently flying is booster B1067, which is not an early variant of the Falcon 9 Block 5, because the Falcon 9 Block 5 actually debuted from Launch Complex 39A back in 2018, I think either just before or just after the Falcon Heavy demo flight. I think it was just before. I could be wrong. Or no, it was after. I think it was after.
Well, the Falcon Heavy demo, I think it was before, because the Falcon Heavy demo though, did have the Block 4 side cores on it.
Correct.
And center core, for that matter.
Yeah, you're right. It was after the Falcon Heavy demo, which is weird in itself because the Falcon Heavy demo was the only Falcon Heavy to ever fly in the Block 4 configuration, because every other Falcon Heavy after that wore Block 5 components, including the likes of it was Arabsat 6A was Flight 2. And
was it Arabsat or STP was Flight 2?
STP was Flight 3, I believe.
Okay.
And then that was the last one for about 3 years until Falcon Heavy flew again in 2022, just before Artemis 1. So, yeah, the Falcon 9 iceberg is rather deep if you really dig into the weeds on it, despite the Falcon 9 being among it is the most commonly flying rocket in the world right now. But yeah, there's a lot of history and, I guess, for what the kids say nowadays, lore.
Facts.
Oh my God, stop. Facts, no printer. I'll see myself out.
Well, not yet. Not until like 7 minutes before launch. But if you want facts about Falcon 9 and the different boosters and the history of Pad 40 and all of that, a great resource for that is nextspaceflight.com or the Next Spaceflight app. That's where Jerry was getting that info before showing the history of Slick 40 going back to its Titan days and then on to Falcon 9. You can go through the history of it, also see when all the launches are coming up, get a little widget on your phone as well to tell you when those launches are happening. And the app also, for most launches, will have a 3D trajectory that you can use to kind of see where it's going to be going throughout flight with data powered by Flight Club. So all of that is available. Again, that wasn't meant to be an ad, but always be plugging, I guess, because it's really a great source for information there. I use that all the time.
ABP.
Like, wait, when was that?
Always be plugging.
You know it. And hopefully Falcon 9 will stick with ABV. And no, we're not talking alcohol by volume. We are talking always be venting, because we should just be coming up right now on the T-minus 20-minute, 20-second vent. And there it is, right on time. So, in case you're wondering, that is an indication that they have finished loading up the RP-1 propellants into Stage 2. Now they're going to condition the line that fills up the tanks for the liquid oxygen, which is much colder than the RP1. So that is going to chill it down and prepare the line for those super cold temperatures that are about to run through it in about 4 minutes from now. And at T-minus 16 minutes, that is when they should start to load up the liquid oxygen on stage 2. And when that does happen, that vent should disappear. Also interesting getting an idea of the wind direction. We always talk about this is a good way to kind of indicate weather, right?
It really is. And in this case, it's mostly blowing from the east coming toward the west. So from Jerry's perspective, it should help the sound actually quite a bit. So keep your eyes peeled for the microphone there. Did I say eyes or ears? I think I said ears.
You said eyes.
Keep your
Eyes peeled for the microphone, yes, and your ears peeled for the visuals.
Keep your ears peeled on the microphone, because that should help out the audio quite a bit. But also, that cloud is rather thick, I guess you could say. It's rather prominent, which means it is very humid out, and there's not much there isn't much room in the air for that leftover moisture to go, except just condense as it is and flow away. So we see it regardless, but there are times where it evaporates into nothing rather soon. But tonight is not one of those times. And as we push closer to the summer months here in Central Florida, we are going to be seeing a lot more of this, where we are usually going to be in the 70 to 90% humidity areas as just on average. I think if it's below 80, I think that's a dry day mostly for us here. But yes, it is very good at telling us what the air is doing, and also the winds as well.
Yep. I like to call it Falcon 9's cape, the cape at the cape there.
Yes, basically, yes.
Let me take a moment, thanks to people here, and then we'll get back to more of your questions, which again, you can tag us at NSF, and they pop up in our little software here. It makes it easier to see them and hopefully answer your questions. Scotty B becoming a Pad Rat member, thank you very much for that. Comp Guy, saying $2 for the Rocket and Roll Spotify playlist fund. I like it.
Nice.
Mimu, thank you for gifting 5 Red Team memberships. Very much appreciate that. Xavier, then got done watching some baseball in time for this launch. Nice. We talking spring training. We talking World Baseball Classic. And then Xavier also asking, what's the difference between Falcon 9 and Falcon Heavy? And it seems kind of ridiculous to say, well, it's just 3 Falcon 9 strapped together, but it's really not that far off, Max, is it?
It's really not, and especially in these side cores, where we have seen Falcon Heavy side cores converted into standalone Falcon 9 first stage boosters, and also vice versa, Falcon 9 boosters converted into Falcon Heavy side cores, because for all intents and purposes, they are almost identical in terms of their structure, and also just their ability to be modified like that so to convert a Falcon Heavy side core to a Falcon 9 first stage, and I guess vice versa, they have to swap out the black interstage on the booster for a nose cone. So, and obviously it's the other way around for the other way around. They also have to attach the struts that or the connection points that latch onto the oh goodness gracious, what's the terminology here? The struts that come out from the core stage to make sure everything stays together and keep the vehicle as 3 common cores, more or less. But the main difference falls within the Falcon Heavy center core, which has a bit thicker of tank walls to take the loads from the side cores, because obviously when you have 2 other rockets bolted to your sides, you then have to handle the forces that those incur on the core stage and the rest of the vehicle. So it's a bit heavier than the side cores. It also has a white interstage as well, which I always find unique compared to just a standard normal Falcon 9 Block 5 first stage booster. But it also has those struts that can move up and down to attach to their corresponding side boosters. But in terms from from stage 2 up, it's more or less identical to what you see flying on Falcon 9. I think it's the same upper stage with maybe no changes, and also the same fairing halves as well. So, but more or less, it's essentially just 3 Falcon 9 cores all bolted together with some minor tweaks here and there.
And until last year, we thought that it was only the side cores that were able to be used as Falcon 9 cores before or after. And then, sure enough, last year, I think it was, 1091, they're like, hey, yeah, this is
Yep.
actually a Falcon Heavy center core that we're going to convert into a Falcon 9 because it turns out this actually is a thing that we can do, and it's been flying a bunch. So even with
And
the
that was also confirmed by John Edwards at SpaceX that they had that center core converted for Falcon 9 single stick use, while the customer that booster is going to fly is still getting ready. And of course, I guess they can never have too many Falcon 9 first stages, I suppose.
as long as they have storage for them, which I mean,
Yeah, right.
between the horizontal integration facility at 39A, at 40, the over at Roberts Road, then you also have the West Coast boosters over at Vandenberg. You have the ones that they bring over to McGregor for testing. Yeah, they're all over the place. And it's interesting you bring up the interstage because we're talking about this being a satellite going to geostationary orbit. Now, geostationary orbit's pretty far away. So if you were just to launch and then coast, it usually takes about 6+ hours to get there. And so for a Falcon 9 mission going up there, or for Falcon Heavies that launch direct into geostationary orbit, we usually see a lighter colored interstage and with this little gray stripe around it, sort of mission extension kind of stripe that helps with temperatures as it goes up that high in space. So we don't see that on this one. So this one's not launching it directly into geostationary orbit, so it must be going to geostationary transfer orbit, which is a slightly lower orbit where the satellite then does the rest of the work and finishes getting its way into orbit over the course of a couple of weeks or months. Not exactly for this one, though, because if that was the case, they would have to expend this booster, and they don't want to do that. So instead, what they're doing is a subsync geostationary transfer orbit, because why make it easy? So they're going to get
slight correction there, Sawyer. That gray stripe is actually on stage 2. It's not a part of the. It's not a part of the.
Sorry, I meant stage 2. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Good.
Did I say interstage?
Sorry, you did.
Yeah, I meant above the interstage, which is stage 2. Anyway, yeah. So this one's going to get almost to geostationary transfer orbit. It's going to go a little bit under it, though. So that means the satellite's going to have to do a bit extra work to get into geostationary transfer orbit on its own, and then still work its way up into geostationary. Hopefully that makes sense. And then, of course, I thought I had it all down, and Alex told me before we went to break earlier when they delayed it, there's also super synchronous orbit where it goes beyond geostationary orbit when it's a light enough satellite. So just, they make it so easy, don't they?
Never a dull moment.
Yeah, thanks, SpaceX. Appreciate it. Space enthusiasts asking, will we get a jellyfish tonight? Max, you're out in the field. Any shot of a jellyfish tonight?
No, unfortunately, at least with the sun. I mean, it's launching at midnight. The sun is very, very far away. So no chance of that tonight, unfortunately. We might see something with the moon helping to light up the exhaust plume from stage 2, but that's incredibly minor and barely noticeable with our eyes or our cameras, because the moon should be rising at about 1:30 tonight, or this morning, I should say, but it is nowhere near full. I think it's about to become a crescent, if not already a crescent at this point. I'll have to recheck my cycles again. But either way, it's not going to be very bright, but unfortunately, it is just going to be a standard night launch tonight. I say unfortunately, it's still going to be cool. People who are out on the beach or who are out on the river in Titusville or Port St. John, wherever, it's going to be a beautiful show tonight, especially once Falcon 9 gets into the upper atmosphere and the exhaust plume begins to expand and change color. Regardless, even though there's not going to be any of that action tonight, or any of that action for the oh my god, I can't say it, jellyfish, it's still going to be gorgeous nonetheless.
Absolutely. You should still see the glow of it all. And if you're anywhere as far south, likely as Miami, as far north as Jacksonville, and maybe a little bit into coastal Georgia, you might be able to see it. So it never hurts to go outside and take a look. If you do, and you manage to get some photos or videos, send them to us on the socials and tag us. It'd be really cool to see them all. We're on Facebook, Threads, Instagram, TikTok, Blue Sky, X, MySpace, Geosites, Club Penguin, all of those. Those are still social media sites, right?
Wow, major throwback there.
I'm old, okay? That's what I'm trying to say. I'm old. Yes, thank you. AOL Instant Messenger also. Yeah.
Oh my God.
Neopets, there we go.
Skype.
RIP Skype.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh man. It's sorry, I had to do a little historical throwback. And if you want a piece of history on your wall, you can do that at shop.nasaspaceflight.com with our metal prints that we have. And speaking of that jellyfish, hey, look at that. There's some metal prints of that jellyfish that you can get and hang up on your wall. So if you ask, is there a jellyfish? Well, now you can always have one. So you could see that from Jerry and Max, I believe, out there. We also have everything you could ever want for Artemis 2, as well as from Artemis 1. So you can check all of that out. And of course, if you just like Falcon 9 or if you like Starship, we have prints for all of those as well. And they are available as both metal prints as well as posters if you don't want to be so committed to hanging something on your wall. So yes, GeoCities, I'm sorry. All of that available, though, at shop.nasaspaceflight.com. I always still called it Geosites, even though I knew it was GeoCities back in the day, so.
I don't even know what that is, to be honest.
Oh my God.
I know.
Now I feel old. Thanks.
You are old. Spoiler alert.
It's true.
Love you.
Sure you do. Anyway, we are now under 10 minutes to go. In fact, under 9 minutes to go until the launch tonight of the Echostar 25 mission. So that is going to be a satellite, as we talked about just now, going eventually to geosynchronous or geostationary orbit around the Earth at the 110-degree inclination mark. And then once there, it will be used to beam television signals to people across North America, the United States, Puerto Rico, those areas who are subscribers of Dish TV that actually still have satellite dish attached to their homes. And that is 8.5 minutes to go from now. A reminder, we talked about this is going to be launching due east from Space Launch Complex 40 at the Cape Canaveral Space Force Station in Florida. And we are expecting them to try and land this booster. And if all goes well, Max, that's going to be which vessels downrange?
So they have a Shortfall of Gravitas. That is the booster recovery drone ship that they use in Florida, one of two. So they have a Shortfall of Gravitas, and just read the instructions. A Shortfall of Gravitas is the one station directly east by about 600 kilometers or so downrange, and then hopefully scooping the fairings out of the water beyond that by about 100 kilometers is their vessel Doug. So business as usual in terms of those assets. But again, the fact that they're able to land a booster the size of Falcon 9 that far out into the ocean. Oh my God, shooting star! I just saw a shooting star.
With no camera on it.
With no camera on it. Good grief. I just saw, dang it. ADD, sorry. Squirrel. Yeah. Yeah, so business as usual on that front. So they have a Shortfall of Gravitas, and assuming all goes well, that should be back into port about 2 or 3 days after launch. But Sawyer, we are now getting to the point in the countdown where I have to go get some cameras ready for launch. So I will check back in with you guys after liftoff, and I will see y'all on the other side.
Sounds good, Max. And again, Max is out there over at Cherry Downs Park. So it's one of the public viewing areas that they have. Jerry Pike with this view over here at the press site. And weather-wise, Jerry, I mean, it's greater than 95% favorable for tonight's launch from the official forecast numbers-wise, but Mark 1 eyeball-wise, how's it looking for you?
I don't even know if the Mark 1 eyeball is the most accurate measurement of the weather tonight because it's extremely humid. Like Max was talking about how the 20-minute vent was very thick and you can feel it, right? You can't see it. You can see it with that vent, but the humidity, it's so thick. You can just feel it all over. It's so humid, and there's absolutely no wind either. So perfect conditions.
That is what we like to hear, and hopefully what we will like to see in just over 6 minutes from now when this mission is set to launch. Hey, in case you're wondering where the fairing is, that's the fairing. So as we get under 6 minutes to go now, that is the satellite that will be launching the Echostar 25 satellite. That is on a Maxar 1300 satellite bus, which if you're like, wait, that makes no sense. What is it? Why does it matter? It's just one of the more popular satellite buses in existence out there, flown by a lot of missions, and I believe that is a view inside the fairing looking up at it prior to the same way that it will be deployed once it reaches into space, which is about 30 minutes or so after it launches. We'll expect to see that deployment. 5.5 minutes to go now. We are getting to the point where we should start hearing them wrapping up different types of propellant loads and top-offs on the vehicle. This vehicle, again, loaded up with RP-1, Rocket Propellant 1, which is a type of kerosene, as well as liquid oxygen, LOX, and those make up both the first and second stages of Falcon 9. Coming up now on 5 minutes to go. About 30 seconds from now, we should be coming up on something known as strung back retract. So basically there's a giant metallic structure up against Falcon 9. That is what they use to roll it out from the horizontal integration facility, basically the hangar nearby at the pad, lift it vertical, and then once it's vertical, it also is connected to all of the ground lines. So that's the lines that fill it up with that RP-1, with the liquid oxygen, that deal with the gases that go through it, nitrogen, things like that. Also has the data lines that go through it, the conditioning lines for the payload itself. All of that runs through that TE. And what they will do is that strong back, they will lean it back 1.8 degrees. In doing so, it is basically getting it just enough out of the way so that when it launches and it throws all the way back, it basically tries to save you from accidentally destroying any of those connections. They keep those connections super short as a result, which means if damage does happen, they can just easily replace them, which is a great thing when you have a launch cadence where sometimes you are launching every 3 days. And right now, SpaceX is averaging just under, I believe it was just under 5 days, 4 days, 5 hours, 26 minutes is the average turnaround time right now. This one did take about 5 days to turn around, though. So we should be getting callouts of everything wrapping up, and the satellite should basically be on its own power at this point, switching to its internal as we wait for the Falcon 9 rocket to do the same. But that won't happen until about the T-minus 1 minute mark. That's when Falcon 9 enters startup, and when those onboard computers then begin taking control of the countdown. Right now, you can see there was those clamps that kind of opened up, and you see it is now retracted away from that vehicle ever so slightly. Again, that's that 1.8 degree sort of initial lean back before the throwback. And all of those gases and venting and everything, totally normal at this point. Should be coming up about 30 seconds from now on one of the last calls for filling up Falcon 9. It should be just about fully fueled within less than a minute. So far, everything looking good. T-minus 2 minutes, 45 seconds to go. The couple second difference is, of course, just the latency from SpaceX's feed versus our cameras, which are closer to real time. And we have confirmation. Stage 1 LOX load is complete. So that means stage 1 fully fueled there with that liquid oxygen oxidizer. Also has that RP-1 propellant in there too. 2 minutes and 15 seconds to go. Again, this booster B1085-14 has flown 7 previous Starlinks as well as other geostationary transfer orbit satellites, crew missions to the International Space Station, the first crewed mission to orbit the Earth in a polar trajectory, all of that from this particular booster. Now under 2 minutes to go. Everything looking great at this point, so in just about 10 seconds or so, we should be seeing the final gas vent closeouts. You could see there the one on the transporter erector starting, and then you'll also see it down at the base of Falcon 9, and that's just purging all of the lines of any remaining gases inside, purging everything out. You don't want any of that kind of lingering around the vehicle if you don't need it at liftoff. But with that, we have a fully fueled Falcon 9 on the launch pad. As mentioned, we should be about 10 seconds away from Falcon 9 entering startup. That's when the onboard computers take control of the countdown. That is also when the tanks will pressurize to their flight levels. And they should just be starting to do that right about now.
Falcon 9 is in startup.
There we go. And now the next call that we should be listening out for in a couple seconds, hopefully, is the launch director giving the final go for launch.
Launch director, go for launch.
There we go. That's what we like to hear. They have the go for launch. So we are now about 30 seconds away from liftoff of Falcon 9. Of course, you hear me yapping all the time right now. We'll be quiet and let you listen to the sounds of the rocket after it lifts off. It does take some time for the sound to get to our microphones a couple miles away, so it will be quiet at first, and then you'll be able to hear the rumble. 15 seconds to go now. Next up will be the activation of the Rainbirds, which is a water deluge system at the base of Falcon 9. That should be starting up right about now. And then in a couple seconds, we will hopefully see the flash of those 9 Merlin 1D engines lighting. There it is. We have ignition and liftoff of Falcon 9 and Echostar 25 to geostationary transfer orbit. Minute 15 seconds into flight, Falcon 9 now going faster than the speed of sound, passing through max Q. Maximum aerodynamic forces now pressing against Falcon 9 and the Echostar 25 payload. And as it passes through that, there we go. It's made it through those max loads against it. And now as it gets higher up into space, we'll start to see that plume expand a bit as the atmosphere gets thinner. See more of those beautiful colors. And as it gets higher up, we should also see the colors start to go more blue and purple right before main engine cutoff. And for tonight's mission, MECO, or main engine cutoff, is happening at the 2 minute and 28 second mark into flight. So a little bit later than we're used to seeing on a Starlink mission. But once that happens, that will be followed by first and second stage separation, and then finally SES1, or second engine start 1, when the Merlin vacuum engine on stage 2 will light up. And there's that plume expansion. There's those beautiful colors getting into the higher, thinner parts of the atmosphere. Just a couple seconds now for MECO. There it is, main engine cutoff right on time. Next up will be the stage of separating. And that will be followed by, right there you see it, the ignition of stage 2. The Merlin vacuum engine now taking over flight at this point. And this should keep going until 8 minutes or so into flight for stage 2, continuing to power up to its initial parking orbit. There will be a second burn later into flight. But now at this point, we should also be coming up on the fairing halves separating away in about 10 seconds from now. That's the sort of clamshell at the top of Falcon 9. Those are what protect the payload inside, and there you go. That is the indication of them separating away. And there's the replay of it from SpaceX's view, looking up, exposing the payload now to space. As we mentioned, those fairing halves are actually going to come back down to Earth, and those will be scooped up and reused for another mission, and it is dug downrange tonight to recover those and bring them back to Port Canaveral. Coming up on 4 minutes into flight, you see that plume expansion. These are our cameras, by the way, still tracking stage 2. We have operated cameras here by Jerry and Max, as well as some remotely operated cameras. I believe Daniel had one of those. These are all our views that we're able to get here. And a huge shout out to the team for doing that. By the way, if you got any views out there, because I saw a bunch of people saying, oh, I saw it in chat. If you did get to see it, tag us on the socials. Facebook, X, Instagram, all of the major ones. Check us out. I love seeing those photos. And any of our team photos will also get posted there too from these launches. Again, this mission continuing on its easterly trajectory, going to a just below geostationary transfer orbit for this payload tonight. The payload will then do the rest of the work, getting into geostationary transfer orbit and eventually getting into geostationary orbit, which is where it will live out its life, providing television to people that use dishes with Dish TV. Everything looking good so far. That is quite a big looking satellite there. In case you're wondering, it is about 6,800 kilos, or over 14,000 pounds, that satellite bus there. And once deployed, those solar panels will expand, I believe, to about 100 feet in width. And right now, stage 1 should just be on its way downhill, and it is. It has passed apogee, the highest point in its trajectory, so now it will start making its way back down to Earth. Of course, it's going to have to try and slow down before it gets to landing, so prior to that, there will be an entry burn. And that is a burn that will start with one engine typically and then go to 3 engines, and that will help slow the vehicle down by basically fighting fire with fire, as we like to say, going through the atmosphere, using that sort of temperature differential to create a mini heat shield around Falcon 9 as it makes its way back in. And for tonight, that should be about a 23-ish second entry burn, so a little longer than we're used to seeing with the typical Starlink missions. Now, 6 minutes into flight, everything looking good. Meanwhile, stage 2 at this point now just passing 15,000 kilometers an hour, already 176 kilometers up in altitude and climbing. Meanwhile, stage 1 now dropping below that 100-kilometer mark, on its way back downhill to hopefully land successfully on the drone ship, a Shortfall of Gravitas located in the Atlantic Ocean due east of the launch site. So again, we should be coming up on that entry burn any second now. And it should be the 131. Single engine, then 3 engines, then back down to 1. There's the onboard view on the left. And there's ignition. And this is a view from our team out in the field catching it. On its way downhill, punching through some of the clouds there at the horizon level. This one a longer burn than we're a little bit used to seeing again, as we mentioned with the Starlink launches. About 23 seconds on this one. And now dropping back down to a single engine. And shut down. Looked like a great entry burn. So coming up next will be SECO 1 prior to the landing burn. So that is second engine cutoff 1. That is the Merlin vacuum engine that has been propelling the satellite into its initial parking orbit. That will shut down about 8 minutes and 2 seconds into flight. And then that will be followed by the landing burn about 30-ish seconds after that. Very different from those who are used to, again, seeing those typical, not your ordinary Starlink missions. Stage 1 now, 12 kilometers in altitude and dropping. Stage 2 already approaching 25,000 kilometers an hour now, over 165 kilometers in altitude. 8 minutes, and we should be coming up on SECO 1. And there we go. See some of that ice floating away. That's totally normal. And that looks like a good burn on stage 2 for its initial burn. As I mentioned, there is a second burn, SES-2, about 27 minutes into flight. So still another 19 minutes until that. Meanwhile, stage 1 now starting its landing burn.
Startup.
See those
First
grid
stage.
fins.
Now, as that
Grid
burn
fins starting to
happens,
do their
you'll see
wiggle.
a drastic decrease in the speed and altitude of the vehicle.
Stage 1 landing leg deploy.
And
Stage 1 landing confirmed.
touchdown.
And fantastic news.
A successful landing of this booster, B-1085, now earning its Dash 15, aka completing 14 flights. Unbelievably beautiful. And of course, the Shortfall of Gravitas, the drone ship that actually has a microphone on the deck. Fortunately, the audio on that was sounded like it was coming from a tin can, but I promise that was from the deck of a Shortfall of Gravitas there. And there we go. That is beautiful. Meanwhile, again, this stage is going to continue its coast at this point, working its way uphill a little bit farther. And as mentioned, about 27 minutes into flight is when they will start SES-2, which is another burn that will last for about 50 seconds. And then at T plus 32 minutes and 40-ish seconds into flight, that is when we should expect to see Echostar 25 on its way, and then from there, son, you're on your own. Absolutely beautiful. I don't know if we have any of our team members back on audio to talk about it. I know got people working on photos and videos. Anyone from the team still able to talk?
Yeah, I am back here.
Hey, Jerry. How was that?
Yeah, it was a beautiful launch. I mean, it was one of the most pronounced VAB squeals that I've heard here. I have to say, it was very, very noticeably and very loud and extended VAB squeal from this one. So I don't know if that's the humidity or the wind direction playing into it, but that was definitely a treat to get to hear that. I'm not sure if any of that got picked up by any of the microphones, but it was definitely audible with my ears.
Oh, it absolutely was picked up on the microphone. At least I was able to hear it. I don't know if anyone else in chat was able to hear it. But yeah, if you did, let me know. Yes, people saying we heard it. Part of it, I guess, is that wind trajectory. Even though the VAB is basically due north from pad 40, it is slightly to the west. So that might have helped with that westerly wind bringing that sound over to you and over towards the VAB. Seeing people saying they saw it all the way down in Broward County. That's down in the Fort Lauderdale area. That's awesome. And again, look is that the moon, I believe, behind the satellite there? That is a cool shot. And everybody chanted, moon, moon, moon. Gorgeous views from
That is the forward-facing camera, right? Correct? Or
yeah, that was the forward-facing, yeah.
Yeah, okay. Yeah,
looking up at
it's
the
not
satellite.
Quite going all the way there, but it's somewhere out there. I mean, I that does make sense if it was launching east. I'm not Alex or know much about orbital mechanics, but it's definitely going east and the moon is rising in the east, so it would make sense to see that from the forward-facing camera on there.
Orbital mechanics, folks. It's not rocket science, except it is. But beautiful. And again, hopefully we'll have a spacecraft on its way to the moon there sooner than later with Artemis 1, or Artemis 2, excuse me. Artemis 1 launched a couple of years ago. Artemis 2, once that launches, no sooner than April 1. That's what we were trying to say. I did get a super chat from some random person, even Michael Red, something like that. Gosh, probably some guy who calls himself the voice of God or something. Saying, quick math. Yes, the proper English spelling. Quick math, M-A-T-H. 56 plus 11 equals a ban. That's what it equals, Kevin. It equals a ban. I thought that was not funny anymore. It's not cool anymore. It's 2026. But thank you for the support, Kevin. And we got replays, folks. So this is from our fleet cam that we have over at Rusty's, which is a great place to get a bite to eat over at the port. Awesome seafood, great food over there, and great views because, as you can see, you can watch launches from there, and that is also where they bring the recovery ships back. So, if you happen to be eating there, you might see a booster return or the fairing ship come back in with fairing halves on it and offload them, and then make its way back out over to another launch for SpaceX. Might also catch Blue Origin's landing platform Vessel 1, better known as Jacqueline out there. You never know. So it's a cool place to grab a bite to eat and watch the boats go by. And there's that turning night into day that we talk about. Just beautiful sunrise created, artificial sunrise there with Falcon 9. Beautiful. And right out of frame there. And we have 2 cameras there, amazingly, that they let us put. So this is from the other fleet camera over at Rusty's. That's so cool going through. Again, it's not actually flying through the power lines, but with that sort of foreground of it. I love it. This is a view from one of the robotic cameras that we have located at the Launch Complex 39 press site. You could tell because of the NASA logo on the building. You can't actually see Space Launch Complex 40 from this view, but you could see it peeking behind the trees, and that is one of the coolest views, is all of a sudden it pops in there, and it's like, oh yeah, I'm here, rising above the tree line. In fact, it's so cool rising above the tree line, we should see it again from a different one of our cameras that we have also located there. Hey, what do you know? Almost like I know the order of the cameras that we get. It's one of those things, if you're out there and you're trying to look for it, it sometimes can be a little harder during the day, but if you are looking for it at night, it's hard to miss. It is very hard to miss. Fantastic. And now, this is a view from one of the other cameras that we have. This is from Daniel, who was tracking this remotely. That's the cool part about this, is we have teams that are able to use robotically tracked cameras to be able to do that. And then this is the track from Jerry Pike over at the press site. And I believe these typically have audio on it. Let's see if this one has the sound and listen back into it. I'm sure Carson will tell me if I'm wrong. There's the sound. Wheel. Beautiful sound as always. Absolutely love it. And then there's the LUT. This a view as well from behind Jerry at the press site. You could see Jerry getting eaten alive by the mosquitoes out there as well as it goes. Oh, look at how bright that is. Max, you were off-site for this one. How was your view?
Oh, it's fantastic. One of the downsides of being over here on the Cape side, though, is you can't actually see the pad. The first thing you see that I guess, tell that liftoff has happened is the sky suddenly gets a lot brighter in one direction, and in this case, north. And then we saw it climb over some condos here, and then, of course, we had a full view, and I was able to track it all the way down range, even had a bit of the entry burn as well. But having this side-on profile is always a treat, because you can always see how long the exhaust tail gets from all 9 Merlin 1Ds. In the way it just changed. Yeah, exactly. See? Climbs right over them.
Yeah, you just have to look for the buildings, and then, yeah, it's a lot easier at night when you get the warning of, hey, this is the rough area where it's going to be. Ask me how I know.
You basically, during daytime, you're kind of SOL until you actually see it. But at night, you at least have the advantage of being able to see the sky getting bright in one certain area before the others. So, but yeah, absolute treat. There's actually a bit of a vapor cone coming up here soon. It was very quick, very brief. But oh my word, was it beautiful.
Yeah, it was a very small one this time, not one of those big ones that takes like 10 seconds and engulfs the vehicle. It was just a little... Waiting for it.
Waiting for it. Wait for it.
Still waiting?
Do it. There.
Do the thing. There it is.
There it is. Very brief. Very, very brief. But yeah, always gorgeous. There were actually a ton of people out here on the beach tonight, which was awesome to see. And everyone began cheering once Miko happened. I guess everyone was just happy that I went off, and they were all happy with how beautiful it was. But my word, it was a wonderful night for launch, and for many others here on the beach as well. I guess they also agree.
Yeah, get a little rowboat there at the end, but we got the gist of what you were saying there, Max. It was
Stupid Starlink.
it's just hey,
Stupid
just
Starlink
because
connection.
this isn't your
I mean,
ordinary Starlink.
right.
It's mad that this isn't a Starlink launch that you're using it for. But one thing we are beyond grateful for is Ethan with a $100 super chat. Goodness gracious. Thank you so much. We can only have all of these different cameras that you saw the replays from and the views and multiple people out in the field. All because of the support that you guys bring us. We're able to bring you these unique and special views from some of the most amazing places around the globe, including right here on the Best Coast at the Kennedy Space Center and Cape Canaveral Space Force Station areas, and Cape Canaveral and Port Canaveral and Titusville and Cocoa and all of those. So thank you so much for that. Saying watch from Melbourne, which again, another great way to get that side-on view, especially for people south or north of the pad.
100%.
And asking, this is probably a good question for you, Max. They're asking, who would you recommend for a Cape flyover tour?
So we have always gone with Cocoa Beach helicopters. They are based in Port Canaveral. It's kind of hard to miss. They have traditionally flown yellow and white helicopters with a big phone number stenciled on the side. So it's kind of hard to miss. They're flying all the time here from Port. But we haven't flown with them in a bit, and I saw an orange one, an orange Robinson R44, which is the same model of a chopper they use, flying. And I didn't know if that was one of theirs or if that was privately owned. I'm not sure. But they are the company that we normally use, and they are flying all the time. So please check them out as well. They are based right in Port Canaveral.
Again, that's not sponsored by them. We pay our way when we go, but that was just
correct.
That's what we use. And check this out. This a view from Max of a streak shot of tonight's launch.
Yeah, it was absolutely beautiful tonight. And I think the haze helped out as well in the photo, giving it a bit more atmosphere, I guess you could say. But yeah, my word, being able to watch from this perspective at times, whenever you do have the chance, is always a visual treat. And everyone else here on the beach really enjoyed it as well, which is always so. I know I've said it already, but it's always super just refreshing to see that the public still cares.
Yeah, it gives the photo more atmosphere and the satellite less atmosphere.
Wow.
And then there's a picture from Julia Bergeron out in the field as well. I'm trying to see this possibly along US 1 in Titusville. All of these shots that you're seeing, these last two streak shots, those are public viewing sites. So if you're, looking at our stuff and going, oh my gosh, it's, that's only because they get the close-up access. For some of the shots, yes. But if you go out to the Cape, you can see a launch, especially at night, and you can try your hand at these streak photos or launch photography. Just give it a try. Have fun with it. If it's not your first launch. If it is your first launch, put the camera down, watch with your eyes, enjoy. But yeah, this is all from public viewing, so you can go check that out. And in fact, if you're wondering where to watch a launch from, we do have a video on the channel that goes over the different viewing locations of where to watch a rocket launch. I think it's called Where to View a Rocket Launch. But yeah, absolutely spectacular. And again, I love seeing people saying, oh, I saw it here, I saw it there. Normally when I step outside, I can see it from home, but usually a little busy during most launches, aka chatting with all of you. So I don't mind, though, if we get to see these gorgeous launches here and provide you all the information to enjoy the launch with us. So coming up in just under 5 minutes now will be a relight of the Merlin vacuum engine on stage 2, and that is known as SES-2, Second Engine Start 2. Obviously, we had SES-1 already. That will be about a 50-second burn or so. And then once that shuts down, about 5 minutes after that, we should see deployment of Echostar 25. And unlike those Starlink missions, SpaceX does continue to provide coverage and views of those bits, which is really nice to see. Oh, man. A lot of people talk about the sound. Saw people saying Ormond Beach, Port St. Lucie, Daytona, Jupiter Island, all great spots to view launches from. Although I can't say I've viewed a launch from the north. I've seen launches from the south of the pads. And yeah, also, Shortfall of Gravitas with the tin can audio of the landing, though. But you could hear the sonic booms in that, which was really cool. Oh, man. We can continue to answer some questions in the meantime if you guys have any while we continue to watch the coast at this point. In case you're wondering where on that timeline the burn is happening, well, see where that the line starts to move away? You see that gray line, and then you see the blue line start to inch off? That's where the burn starts, and you can see that sort of slight trajectory change that it will be doing there. Someone's asking, why do they boost the second stage another time, Max? Why don't they just do it all in one?
That is to either circularize or get the payload to its proper altitude that they have to, just based on the way they launch and the laws of or just the laws of physics and orbital mechanics. The apogee will not change unless you actually. I'm sorry. The perigee of your orbit will not change unless you increase your velocity at the apogee of your orbit. So or the highest point of your orbit. So that is oh my goodness gracious, to circularize their orbit and get the payload in a good spot to deploy and do the rest of the work to get to its required position in geostationary orbit. So that is essentially why we also see this or hear this, I should say, for Starlink missions, for crew missions, for almost every single mission. There is always a second burn somehow, either with the upper stage or with the spacecraft, to make sure that the orbit is circularized and that the spacecraft does not come back into the atmosphere prematurely, because that would be a bad day for a lot of people.
Yeah, and I love, you could see there when they go to the front-facing camera, the sunrise starting to happen on the screen there as it goes further east, getting towards Europe in that area, and you start to see daylight breaking. I love that. Now about a minute to go until that startup again, the relight of the Merlin vacuum engine. Man, I got worried. I'm like, wait a minute, is the sun starting to rise? No, it's just traveled that far when you're going 26,582 kilometers an hour. Turns out you get places pretty quickly. About 30 seconds to go. By the way, you may see some, like you saw there earlier, looks like it's snowing. You may see some gases vent. You may see some things fly away. That is totally normal. It is snowing liquid oxygen, basically. Or in that case, frozen oxygen. But that is the super chilled propellants that we talked about. Also in the cold temperatures of space there, you will see ice start to build up in places, and when it gets moved, it will kind of break away. So now you can see getting ready there, see the ice floating away, getting the propellant down towards the bottom of the vehicle, getting ready to ignite it, that green flash of TTEB, which is the igniter. And now the glow of the engine bell as we have reignition of the second engine, the second stage engine there, the Merlin vacuum.
That looks so wicked.
Oh.
Goodness me.
Looking up from the payload adapter. So that looking obviously at the engine, the other one looking up from where the engine is firing. And you can see that speed increasing now, 31,000 kilometers an hour and climbing as the sun begins to rise. Still another 15-ish seconds left on the burn. Again, they give us approximate times, but the spacecraft is using actual data to determine when to shut down. So the times are estimates.
And there it is.
See that ice floating away as the momentum stops. The engine shuts down. 28 minutes into flight. Now over 34,000 kilometers per hour. 208 kilometers in altitude. And now about 4-ish minutes away from payload deploy. And they have confirmation of nominal orbital insertion. So they had the first parking orbit, and now they are in their planned deployment orbit, which is just below geostationary transfer orbit. So what will happen is it will deploy the payload, and then the payload itself, the satellite, will do the rest of the work to burn into a geostationary transfer orbit. That's typically where they boot it up, get the solar panels out, do checkouts on the vehicle, make sure everything is good to go, and then once they realize that, hey, our spacecraft's healthy, everything's good with it, then they will use the onboard propellants and thrusters to move that satellite into its final orbit in geostationary orbit, the 110-degree inclination mark. And again, let it snow, everybody! You can see some of that venting from there of those propellants. Totally normal. It usually happens. And then the stage will passivate itself and come back in and deorbit. I believe this one will deorbit, and then it will be a good space partner and try and keep all of the junk out of low Earth orbit if possible. So any of those second stages now, it is a requirement to have a way to dispose of them, either in what's known as a graveyard orbit, which is basically an orbit where you just put all of the dead stuff, or forcing it to re-enter and burn up in the atmosphere.
This is one of the. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
There it is, by the way. You can see that is where that re-entry is expected to happen, and that's what that mark is there for. In case any debris does come down, that is why there is that keep out zone, but almost all, if not all of it, is expected to burn up. Sorry, go ahead, Max.
Now, I was just going to say, from one of the onboard cameras there looking forward, it's always one of the most interesting parts in flight where the spacecraft is high enough to be in direct sunlight, but the Earth below you is still black. It's always one of the most eerie times in orbit. I mean, granted, an entire orbital cycle takes about 90 minutes, but there's obviously a period of time there where you are in direct sunlight, but you have not flown over the line where the sun has crossed on Earth's surface yet, which is always kind of spooky. But always, it's still really, really cool nonetheless.
It really is. And now getting into that daylight with the Earth below. Oh, I love when we get to see these views, and especially from so high up. Again, even for Starlink launches, they're typically lower down in their planned orbits because they only, go up a couple hundred kilometers total.
Yep.
And now this one's already at 330 kilometers and climbing rapidly.
About 1 kilometer per second, which is nuts.
Yeah. It's going high and it's going fast. And hopefully it will go on its own in under a minute from now, or about a minute from now, when we will see, hopefully, the deployment of Echostar 25.
God, that is so strange and so cool.
Should begin its months-long checkout and commissioning before eventually getting into its final orbit and going online shortly after. This is so... I'm just enjoying the view of the clouds below and everything.
Yeah.
This is great. Coming up now on about a minute until deploy. Again, now already 400 kilometers in altitude. And you can see that little icicle there in one of the vents. Again, Falcon 9 has done its job getting this into its planned orbit. It's totally fine, and then it will just do its normal deorbit procedure. So that little icicle there is not an issue. In fact, that's why part of that jolt that you see is when they get the propellant back down towards the engine, because again, in microgravity, you want the fuel to actually be where it needs to be flowing, and in doing so, it tends to jolt away any of that buildup of ice as well. Stuff we normally don't get to talk about, because we normally don't get to see this part.
Yeah, I know, right? This is this is unique.
I love it. And this is what we geek out on. This is why we do it. It's views like this, and getting to share it with viewers like you watching.
Yeah, normally we're used to seeing views cut from stage 2 right after Seco 1 for Starlink, but obviously not the case today.
They even started cutting it out before nominal orbit insertion now.
Yeah, right. Any second now.
Yep. Oh, come on, Starlink Network. Stay strong. Now is not the time to go glitchy.
Yeah, for real.
And here we go. Standing by for deployment. I guess deployment is a little bit later than their originally published timeline, which is fine. Again, as we pointed out earlier, this is all based off of data from the spacecraft itself and from the trajectory itself. So if things go slightly faster or slightly slower, or they want to be able to adjust slightly where they deploy, all of that is possible. And that's why all of the times they give us are listed as approximate. And now you can see there, we continue to wait for that deploy. Although we know where it is now, as it's about to pass its way off the eastern coast of Africa, heading towards Madagascar. It's hard to see because of the clouds, but yeah, that thing's already in Madagascar by now.
It's the magic of orbital velocity.
Yeah, it turns out when you're going 32,750 kilometers an hour, that happens.
Now, as a reminder, we're just waiting for payload deployment of the Echostar 25 satellite from our Falcon 9 second stage. And we continue to have spectacular views of the Earth in the background there. As a reminder, Echostar 25 is a direct broadcast satellite for Dish TV, and it's launching to a geostationary transfer orbit on tonight's mission.
Yeah, waiting to see the
Now
deployment.
built on the flight-proven 1300 class platform, this satellite represents the next step in Echostar's nearly 30-year collaboration with Lantera Space Systems.
It looks like that timeline is moving, though. So that's a good thing.
is.
That kind of
Yep,
arch
almost
there. So standing by now, again, off the coast of Africa here for
And
payload
we should
deploy.
be just a few moments away from payload deployment.
Standing by. Yet already now almost 800 kilometers above the Earth. And
Payload separation confirmed.
Hey.
there you go. You can see that little spring pushing it away there, and there goes the satellite. You can see the engines underneath it, the folded up wings of those solar panels. Oh, that's a gorgeous view. Again, almost 1,000 kilometers in altitude at this point, 840 kilometers up. And it is on its way. Oh, that's a gorgeous view. Absolutely beautiful. While we're watching this, let me thank Sheepwolf for becoming a Pad Rat member. Thank you very much for that. And amazingly, we had over 1,000 likes on this stream, which is also amazing. Thank you, everyone, for letting people know how exciting this is and sharing it with more people, because we love sharing it. And we love seeing this an empty launch pad as well after a successful launch. So let me thank the people that joined me here tonight. Jerry Pike out in the field, thank you for joining.
Of course, it's always a pleasure to be out here for another eventful evening at the Space Coast here.
Yes, and also joining the eventful evening on the Space Coast there is Max Evans. Thank you, Max.
Thank you very much, everyone, and thank you for coming to hang out with us tonight. It is rather early in the morning now, but we have all become used to this by now. So I think we are all well accustomed to this timeline. But always a treat. Thank you very much for everyone for coming out, and we hope to see you again very soon.
Hey, at least it's not 6 a.m. like the next Starlink.
Oh shit! Oh my god.
Yeah, sorry about that. Carson Phillips, thank you as well for pushing the buttons, pulling the levers tonight, and producing the stream. And a reminder, you can see all the photos and videos and cool stuff that came out from tonight's launch over on the NSF social platforms, X, Facebook, Instagram, Threads, TikTok, Blue Sky, and of course you get all kinds of other awesome space information, so give it a follow while you're over there too. I'm Sawyer Rosenstein. I have been your host for this evening's broadcast. Thank you so much all for joining us, and we will see you for the next one.
And here we go.
There's the W. Here's ignition.
Roger roll, Atlantic. Doubling up.
Did it just do a Kerbal?
Back to the moon and beyond.
Put that in the big bag, you know.
Back at home, we all have a lot of work to do, but from here, it sure looks like a perfect flow.
Propulsion continues to be normal.
We did have an observation.
Equalize.
343 unfolds to go.
It's orange.
Water towers can fly!
Bingo! Right in the center. Where's Jacqueline? There it is!
That was surreal.
That's not what we want to see.
No!
Oh my god.
Yikes. You bet. We don't need any more of these.